There a defining moment that triggered that?
I've had several moments like that. You probably know my story, but your audience doesn't. In 1980, I was 6 years old. My dad decided that we're going to escape the Soviet Union. My dad was a member of the Communist Party. We came to the United States. We didn't speak English, didn't understand the culture, didn't know the people. We knew nobody there. So while I'm staying home with mom in the government-assisted housing that we lived in, my dad, my brother, and my sister are out there working multiple jobs for minimum wage or less. My sister would come home crying, asking my dad, can I quit that job? And he would say, just work there another month. We need the money so we can get out of these crap hole apartments. My sister being 16 years older than me, she's like a second mom to me. I remember feeling helpless, like I can't do anything to help my sister. So one of those times when she was crying to my dad, I went up to her and I said, one day I'm gonna be so rich that you'll never have to work again. That was about 14 years ago. I got to a point financially where I told my sister to quit her job. I said, quit your job, you work for me full-time from now on. That was a defining moment for me. I knew that money would solve problems. And this is a problem with people who think that money is bad, money's evil. The Bible says that money's evil. It says the lust or the love of money is evil. In other words, the love of anything, the love of so much alcohol is evil.
Bedros, welcome to the Agency Podcast. You have some seriously devoted superfans here in Australia, man.
Well, it's a pleasure to finally be here. The people, the culture, everything is just so amazing about Sydney and all of Australia. I've had a good fortune to tour it the last couple of days, and to now be here in your studio has been it's really rad. And I can't wait to get on stage at Rise to Greatness. I mean, it's going to be transformational event, and I'm happy that you're part of that.
Yeah, big shout out to Rob Theo and his beautiful wife and everything that they've done, and they've done a remarkable job.
Yeah. I mean, to put on, we've been putting on live productions like this for the last 13 years. I always tell people, imagine putting on a 1 or 2 or 3 day wedding. You have to entertain the guests, you have to feed the guests, you have to educate the guests, you have to keep them excited about the whole thing. You're renting ballrooms, you're running marketing systems. Those seats don't get filled up by themselves. And for Rob and his wife to do 3 cities back to back, it's amazing, and it is nothing short of like miraculous to put something like this on.
Yeah, it's remarkable. And recently you've released the book Man Up, and I sent our team out to bookstores all over the city, and we couldn't find it anywhere. It's completely sold out. It's in high demand. But with the title being Man Up, it's quite a polarizing title.
Sure is.
What was the intent and the spirit behind writing that title?
Yeah, good question. So my book Man Up, it was published in September of 2018, and it was right in the middle of the Me Too movement. I don't know what was happening here in Australia, but in the United States, the Me Too movement was, guys like Bill Cosby and Harvey Weinstein, who were just absolute assholes to women. And a lot of women were coming out the woodworks, rightfully so, saying, look, this is how they've treated me. This is what's happened to me. And the whole idea was, well, me too, and me too, and me too. And so to put out a book titled Man Up was definitely polarizing at that time. But the idea of Man Up wasn't about necessarily empowerment for men. It's empowerment for all. It's human up to your highest potential. And as I share in the book, in 2013, 14, and 15, I was suffering in silence, hooked on Vicodin, and overweight by 30, 35 pounds, trying to start my businesses, and realizing how stressful it is, how compounding the pressure is when you are not sleeping well, when your relationship is struggling, when you are overweight. And all of this, put me under massive financial debt. And I remember I was unhappy with my business partner. He was unhappy with me. As with all businesses, you kind of have this idea, but then when you launch it, things happen that derail you. And if you're not operating off the same page, you begin to really develop a lot of friction. And that's what we had developed. And so now I've got a business partner who I don't like, who doesn't like me, and I'm in debt, and I'm overweight, and I'm hooked on Vicodin just to fall asleep. And I realized one day that if I'm going to get this business going, and the business was Fit Body Bootcamp, our international fitness franchise, if I'm going to get this thing launched and successful worldwide, I have to man up. I have to man up and start having the conversation with my business partner instead of being passive aggressive. I have to man up and do something about my addiction. I have to man up and do something about my weight. I have to man up and figure out how to get my finances in order. And so literally I would coach myself like, dude, just man up and have that conversation. And I would have anxiety as I was approaching the person to have the conversation, because factory installed for me is not leadership. Like, I am not a factory installed leader. And so I don't have this Jocko Willink type energy, at least back then, where I believe I just assume Jocko's. He's spoken at many of my events, and every time I meet him, he's just very locked in, very direct. That wasn't me. I grew up in a very Armenian culture under a communist father who taught me with the 5 brothers. It's a backhand, right? Anytime he doesn't like what you're saying, he goes, you're going to get the 5 brothers, and he'd backhand you. So you learn to shut up, you learn to be passive aggressive, you learn to not voice your opinions. That is the opposite of what a great leader should do. And so because of that, I'd created a mess in terms of my company, my health, my body, my finances. And so one man-up situation at a time, I humaned up to my higher self. Like I knew that as humans, we're pliable. I can learn to be a better leader. I can learn to be a better communicator. I can learn to be a better visionary. And if I can lead, communicate, and create a vision that everyone will buy into, I'll have a winning formula. And so it took me several years to man up to my higher self. I did, and when I wrote the book, Man Up, I had no idea that the Me Too movement was going to launch, right during the time of the book launch. In some ways it helped, in other ways it didn't. There were several people that you and I know of, everyone who, if I mentioned their names, they wouldn't want to touch my book with a 10-foot pole during that time. They said, man, we love you. I'd have you on my podcast if the title was anything else. And then there was other people like Andy Frisella, Ed Milet, Lewis House, who said, man, we love you, and we understand what the title is about, and we'll put you on the podcast, and we'll promote your book anyway. And I'm not offended or hurt by the guys who didn't put me on their show. I get it. But I'm also the type of person where I realize hopefully you can look beyond the cover and go into the depths of the book, and the information wasn't about, men empowering themselves over women. It was just men and women empowering themselves to their highest self. And in fact, 62% of our readers of my book buyers are men, which means, almost 40% are women. So a substantial amount are women readers.
I think it's interesting when you take that approach and, that message also resonates with women.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a palpable way.
Look, if you're human, you're not operating at your highest self. There is an internal conversation that you're having. And that internal conversation is your higher self. It's your conscience telling you that you need to do this better. You need to have that conversation. You need to be more structured. You need to give up that vice. But what do? We escape from it. We avoid it. We use alcohol and food and television and social media and drugs to escape the things that are haunting us instead of facing them, right? And that's what the whole idea of man up and do the thing that you're called to do so you can become the person that you're meant to be.
So if someone's sharing a predicament maybe similar to yours, or they're facing their own demons, you're talking about you felt like you were overweight, you weren't in a great situation in your relationship, both in business and in your intimate relationships. If someone's listening to this and they're thinking to themselves, okay, I want to do something about this, do you have a set of pillars or something that they can kind of live by as a system?
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. It starts with the number one, internal locus of control. We were talking about before the mics went hot and the video camera started rolling. Most people have an external locus of control, which means, it's his fault that our business isn't working well, and it's her fault that my relationship isn't doing so good, and it's this person's fault for running the government into the ground, and therefore, people aren't buying from me. Okay, that's all external locus of control. Internal locus of control is, what can I do? What can I do? And the moment you say, if it must be, it's on me, then you realize, all right, I may not be able to change him, but what can I do to do my part of the business better? What can I do to improve my relationship more? And so when I went internal locus of control, I realized that there's one thing that I can change that no one else can impact it, and that is my physiology. So I need to stop the things that are hurting me, overeating at night, because I'm an emotional eater. And so,
me too, man.
Okay, so you can understand. You're stressed, you're overwhelmed, and in hindsight, I look back, I was just looking for dopamine, right? And so I would literally stand in the kitchen, at the kitchen buffet, and eat 3 or 4 bagels I would dip it. I wouldn't even spread cream cheese on it. I'd break the bagels in half and I'd dip it in the whipped cream cheese and I'd eat it. So I'm eating 3,000-4,000 calories a night on top of my normal foods that I'm eating, right? So it was easily 6,000-7,000 calories a day. And so I tell people, if you can just control what goes into your mouth and you can control your activity for the day, your exercise program, when your body changes, your mind and your emotions have to change. There's not even an option. There's not even an option. And so when people try and go, well, I'm going to read a book and try and change my mindset. I'm going to read a book and get myself out of this anxiety or depression. Good luck. You're never going to get there. You're never going to get there. You're just going to be a a more intelligent, anxious, and depressed person because you read a book. Start working out and eating clean. Those are the two things you can absolutely control with 100% certainty that no one else can interfere with. And as those wins start stacking up, you start seeing that, all right, I've got this positive dopamine hit instead of Vicodin or food in my case. I got a positive dopamine hit. I look good. I feel good. My body's reacting well. Where else is this going to bleed into? Because how you do anything is how you do everything. The problem is most people want to control everything outside of their control, and they do nothing about the one or two things that are within their control. So start with your food and your training. Get in your best shape ever. When I tell people, get your abs dialed in and tell me you're still depressed. 99% of the time, depression and anxiety goes away when your abs show up. That's not by accident.
I'm going to work on that. I like what you're saying here, and I think these are some important points. Do you think that, I guess, regarding dopamine, you mentioned dopamine. I think we're living in an era now where people are hooked on their phones, they're hooked on devices, they have all kinds of vices that would give them immediate gratification. When we're talking about getting abs, that can take months. Do you think that we're in a crisis where people are overwhelmed by immediate dopamine versus pursuing the delayed gratification?
Absolutely. In fact, both anxiety and depression is higher than ever right now, simply because we're pursuing immediate dopamine. What we should be pursuing is serotonin. Serotonin is, DAIN decides to build this agency. It wasn't overnight. It took time and effort. It was an idea that laid in your head, and you worked and you made enough money to hire one person and the next person and the next person. Over years, you built out an agency. That is serotonin, to see an idea, bring it to fruition, and then over time, get it to its desired state. That is serotonin. That's the other happy hormone or chemical in our head. Dopamine is the constant scrolling. Like, gee, did I get enough likes? Did I get enough comments? Did my shit go viral? And so, in fact, today they're seeing that there's something called short-term memory loss in the youth, in young people that have short-term memory loss. And you walk into any Starbucks and you go, hey, whatever, iced coffee with a splash of almond milk and 2 pumps of classic syrup. They'll look up to you. I'm sorry, was that a cold brew or was that a cappuccino? No, I said iced fucking coffee. And that's because short-term memory loss is gone. Because when you are constantly screen sucking that quickly, your brain does not have the capacity to digest and process it all. So you're forced to purge, because otherwise it's overwhelming. So what ends up happening is any other new information that comes in, a coffee order, hey, DAIN, my name is Bedros, nice to meet you. And you go, I'm sorry, what's your name? It's fucking Bedros. Now, obviously, you know my name, and that's not what happened. But you get what I'm saying.
Yeah.
We have short-term memory loss now because we're teaching our brain to purge so much information. Since when should young kids have amnesia, right? That's effectively what it is. And so it's unfortunate, but more people are chasing dopamine when they should be chasing serotonin, something that produces long-term results. So yeah, motherfuckers, get your abs in order, get your nutrition in order, have a morning routine that sets you up to win. You're not Mark Zuckerberg. You don't have to wake up and go into Facebook or Instagram or Threads to see I'm just checking in. Checking in on what? Zuckerberg should be checking in on his platforms to see if they're up and if they're active and he's making money. You should be checking in on your shit, someone else's shit.
It's a good point. You should be checking in on your shit first.
Right.
Before you worry about what the world's doing.
Again, internal locus of control. The fuck do I have to do with Mark Zuckerberg?
You make some good points there, and you highlight some dark things as well. So, in the predicament where someone's like, okay, I'm going to start working on my health. I'm going to start eating clean, maybe going to bed earlier, getting up and having some me time in the morning. What about professionally? What's some things that people should start having as their North Star if they're trying to build a business, if they're in a predicament where all hell's breaking loose and nothing's going right?
On the business side, I think that's really important, man. My whole message throughout my life is 3 things: money, meaning, and self-mastery. Make more money when your financial freedom and sovereignty have meaning and purpose, because without meaning and purpose, life is boring and stupid, and you'll end up self-deleting, as they say, or at least contemplating the idea of that. And then self-mastery, become your highest self. Like, we're not born, there's no 90-day guide to self, right? Like, you weren't born with a operating manual that mom and dad gave you. And so they raised you the best they could. However, with that comes some trauma, comes some adversities. And so our first purpose in life is to develop to our higher self, whatever that version of you looks like. And then you give that version of you to the people that you want to serve, right? As an example, as a leader, as a mentor, as a coach, as a guide, as a parent, as a spouse, as a boss, as a leader. So in business, what do? Well, we need to learn two things: impulse control and singularity of focus. Again, this goes back to we have gotten used to trying to get immediate gratification so quickly that if I launch my business and I don't see results in 60 days, 90 days, 6 months, I'm ready to pivot and move on. And so you see all these people with all these half-baked ideas that have never really come to fruition. And if we can have singularity of focus and you can control your impulses, you can go narrow and deep on the one thing. And so what I tell people is like, look, if nothing else is going right in your business, figure out where's my number one source of money. Because the Pareto principle applies, 80-20 rule, right? That means 80% of my money is probably coming from 20% of my efforts. Figure out where that 20% of your efforts are and put 100% of your efforts there and kill all the other darlings. When you kill your darlings, and Stephen King, the author, great novelist, he wrote a book on how to write books. And of course, when I was writing Man Up, I was like, well, shit, this guy knows how to write books. Let me buy the book and learn how. One of the biggest takeaways was, he says, kill your darlings. In other words, kill the words, sentences, paragraphs, stories that have meaning to you, but really give no meaning to the reader. So if you're going to have a book that's got 100,000 words in it, if you can trim it down to 60,000 words, you're going to have a higher chance of someone finishing your book, therefore getting the value from it. So if I've got a business and I'm selling this, that, and the other, I'm doing this marketing strategy and that affiliate program, and I'm doing this joint venture and collab. All right, let me figure out, what is 80% of my efforts, like results, coming from? Oh, it's from this 20% of the thing. I'm going to kill everything else and just go singularity of focus on that, and watch how quickly your business turns around.
So you talked about, in the early stages, you wanted to overcome all the things you were unhappy with in your life, essentially. Was there a defining moment that triggered that? And from that point, what was your vision then and there? And was it where you are now?
I've had several moments like that. So you probably know my story, but your audience doesn't, so it's worth sharing. In 1980, I was 6 years old. My dad decided that we're going to escape the Soviet Union. My dad was a member of the Communist Party, that we're going to escape and come to the United States. So I'm an immigrant to the United States. We came to the United States. We didn't speak English, didn't understand the culture, didn't know the people. We knew nobody there. We just knew, my dad knew a friend of a friend who would let us stay in his apartment, in his flat, for 30 days. In that time, now I'm also the oops baby. So while I was 6 years old, my brother was 19 years old. My sister was 21 years old, right? So they're significantly older than me. So while I'm staying home with mom in the government-assisted housing that we lived in after those 30 days in that gentleman's apartment, my dad, my brother, and my sister are out there working multiple jobs for minimum wage or less. And my sister worked at a pizza shop, and the owner of that pizza shop was very lewd, was very suggestive, was very handsy with my sister. And my sister would come home crying, asking my dad, can I quit that job? And he would say, just work there another month. We need the money so we can get out of these crap hole apartments, right? Now, again, my sister being 16 years older than me, she's like a second mom to me. And so I remember feeling helpless, like I can't do anything to help my sister. So one of those times when she was crying to my dad, I went up to her and I said, one day I'm going to be so rich that you'll never have to work again. And that was about 14 years ago. I got to a point financially where I told my sister to quit her job. By this point, she works as a customer support rep for an insurance company. But I said, quit your job. You work for me full-time from now on. She goes, well, what do I do? I said, don't worry about it. We'll figure it out. Joan will figure it out. And do some customer support emails, do whatever. Go hang out with mom and dad. And I love that. So that was a defining moment for me. I knew that money would solve problems. And this is a problem with people who think that money is bad, money's evil, that apparently the Bible says the money's evil. It says the lust or the love of money is evil. In other words, the love of anything, the love of so much alcohol is evil. The love of too much ibuprofen will drill a hole in your stomach, right? But of course, money is a vehicle to freedom. Money solves the problem of not having money, and that's a good problem to solve. Money allows me to donate to the charities and to the causes that I believe in, to the church that I want to support. Money allows me to give my parents the highest quality of life. My mom died last year. She died in our house with hospice, a Armenian-speaking caretaker the entire time with her. She had dementia. If I didn't have an obscene amount of money, she would have died in a nursing home somewhere, a horrible death by herself. And so, to me, when I see people having this poor negative association with money, I simply don't understand it. So there's been a lot of defining moments. That was a defining moment with my sister. Another defining moment was when I realized I can use my money, I can deploy my money to help my mom. Even before that, in 2013, I had a massive panic attack. This was right around the time where I was in massive debt, taking lots of Vicodin every night to fall asleep, eating bagels like they were going out of style, 30 pounds overweight, relationship was suffering, and I had this massive panic attack. And I swear to you, bro, I thought I was having a heart attack. I was like, shit, I'm 38 years old, this is how I die, right? Thankfully, it was just a panic attack. But when I went to the doctor, again, he's like, listen, like your heart's fine, but you had a panic attack. And if you keep running your life the way you're doing, you are going to have a heart attack at some point. And I remember thinking to myself, if I die, who walks Chloe, my daughter, down the aisle? Who teaches my son Andrew to be a modern day knight? Like that's my role and responsibility. And so again, I deployed my money and I said, I'm going to hire some of the best people that I can to help create. I'm a great marketer. I'm a great visionary. I'm not great at managing people. And I realized that about myself, but I was too cheap and too stupid to realize I can deploy my money and hire a second in command, head of operations, a CEO, a VP, and they could run the people and I could just keep staying in my lane. As soon as I did that, my entire life changed. So there were several defining moments where money is concerned, and all of those moments were very painful for me. And it's usually pain. It's not the desire to gain, it's the desire to escape some pain that becomes a defining moment for you.
Yeah, and I think Tony Robbins touches on this where he said that, you know, a woman might wake up in the morning and there's two reasons that she would put on makeup. One, because she feels good about herself and people will give her compliments. And the other one is to prevent herself being ridiculed for looking tired or this or that or being made fun of in some regard.
Right.
A positive reinforcement and a negative reinforcement. And you can interchange as an individual.
Sure.
How does someone stay primed to see the world in a positive way despite maybe what's in front of them?
Well, currently, if you look at world history right now, this past Saturday, there was a attempted assassination on Donald Trump, right? Former president, now again in the candidacy to become president again. You turn on social media, at least American social media, American news.
Everywhere.
Everywhere. And it's actually worldwide news.
I remember
It's
scrolling
everywhere.
through the feed and it was just like every post.
Same picture everywhere. And what that's doing is charging everybody up. And look, while I think it's something we should talk about and discuss and figure out why the United States is so divided, I love that country. My father risked his life to bring us there. It's given me this amazing life where I could help so many people, employ so many people, create dozens of businesses. So I certainly think we ought to figure out what's going on in our country and who's creating this division and how can we solve it. However, what most people do is they focus so much on the external locus of control again. Look at what happened to Trump. This shouldn't happen. The Democrats did it. It's a conspiracy theory. Why didn't the Secret Service? Like motherfucker, if you could be that vigilant about your own life, if you could question why you're 10 or 15 pounds overweight, like you're questioning the Secret Service, if you could question your financial bank account, your financial state, instead of, you know, why Donald Trump said that, why he turned his head this way, and was it a stage thing? Like people want to create so much noise externally so that they don't have to deal with the noise internally. The greatest thing you can do is shut off all information that is not pertinent to your life. And so social media is exactly that. It's information that is developed to trigger your senses, anger, rage, emotion. It's not necessarily going to put you in the most positive state of mind. So if you want absolute control over yourself, control the thoughts that occupy your mind and the people that you surround yourself with. Those are the two things. So the thoughts that occupy your mind can come from mainstream media, newspapers, radio, music, social media, and then the people that you surround yourself with. You are the sum of the people that you surround yourself with. I think it was a great Stoic that said, you wake up and you go out into the world, and by the time you come home, a very different man has come home. You're never the same man that left the house that came back home, right? Between information and people, they've had enough influence on you. There's a different version of you that came home. Is it a lesser version or a higher version? And I'm always asking myself that. And if I knew coming here would be a negative experience, I would politely decline. But I know you, I follow you, I like your content. I'm Like, you know what? This is going to be an uplifting experience for me, a positive experience for me. And here we are. I'm not social scrolling. I'm a creator of content. I'm not a consumer of content, because I will not consume something that someone else has put out there to change my way of thinking, my belief systems, my attitude, my vision in life. When people tell me the economy is crashing, I go, I'm having the best financial year of my life. If I really started paying attention to the economy crashing, then I wouldn't have the best financial years.
This is the right perspective to take, because I think you can make money in all climates.
Absolutely.
It's just, usually in these times of crisis, and we've identified this, a lot of our competitors are contracting, shrinking, laying off, and, shrinking their ad spend, and we're doubling it. And I think then when the market bounces back, we talked about this, then you're going to have marketing dominance.
Yeah.
Regarding something you often speak about, which is how we get stuck in a construct of like the 9 to 5 and the rhythms of society, right? We talked about Donald Trump and what's happening on social media and how everyone's kind of getting sucked into the void. How important is it to realize what's really psychologically happening in that situation, and what should people do about it day to day?
So on the day-to-day basis, like whoever gets voted into president, let's just use the United States, but you can, whatever country you're in, whether you have a prime minister, a king, a queen, or president, et cetera, it doesn't really matter. But let's just use the United States. It doesn't matter if it's Biden, or they replace Biden with Kamala Harris, or they replace Biden with Gavin Newsom, or if Trump goes into office. My economy and my family's financial state and the people that I work with, their state, their lifestyle, their security doesn't change. It will constantly improve because we have direct control over that. Too many people put, again, so much control in the hands, with so much access in the hands of others. When Trump becomes president, that's it. It's all going to be racist. And if Biden goes into office again, we're giving the country away to the communists. Well, okay, but what can you do about your own personal economy, your own security, your own state of mind, your own belief systems, right? And if you change your belief systems and I change mine and he can change his, and we all control our financial state, then guess what? Collectively, we are the country. Voila, the country is now back in the hands of the citizens. And so we spend too much time drifting. Napoleon Hill, I think his greatest book is not How to Win. What was Napoleon Hill's, the book that he's popular for?
How to Win Friends and Influence People.
Win Friends and Influence People. It's not that book. His best book is Outwitting the Devil, that he wrote even before How to Win Friends and Influence People. The only difference is his family did not want him to put that book out.
Didn't they keep it locked away for like 100 years?
Since 1936.
And it was after he passed away that they released it.
After he passed away and his entire clan passed away, then he had instructed his estate to put the book out. So a book that was written in 1936 was published in 2011. It is more relevant today. Outwitting the Devil is more relevant today than it's ever been, simply because he talks about those who have a definitive purpose in life and those who are drifting through life. Those who are drifting through life with no purpose, no sense of significance or meaning, are latching on to anything: fear, doubt, uncertainty, conspiracy theories, right? Those who have certainty and purpose, I don't care about fear. I don't care about doubt. I don't care about what's happening anywhere else. I'm a man on a mission. And so he talks about the drifter versus the person that is locked onto his life's goals. The drifter will also then get consumed by fear, alcohol, cigarettes. He uses television at the time, but today we have social media, right? But the person that has definitiveness of purpose, like, I know what my life's mission is. I know what the universe or my creator or God, whoever your person, your leader is, I know they put me on this planet for a reason. And I'm definitive in that reason. And nothing can stop me from that, achieving that outcome. Like, that person cannot drift away into stress, anxiety, worry, depression. And so the more that people can focus on their definitiveness of purpose. And so the question should be really, how does one figure out what their purpose in life is? And I think that is the overarching, the meaning of life is to figure out the meaning of your life. That's it. When you go, hey, what is the meaning of life? Don't worry about that. What is the meaning of DAIN's life? That's the only thing you should worry about. What is the meaning of Bedros' life? Because if I can figure out why the Creator has put me here on this planet, what are my weaknesses? What are my vices? What are my fears and frustrations? What are the things that keep me awake at night that I worry? If I could solve all those things, there's probably tens of millions of other people like that who I can go out and help and say, here's the path that I went down to fix all these things. If you can relate, come join me, right? That's exactly what I've done over the last 20 years of my life. An immigrant kid who was broke, who was fearful, who had been molested by 2 older boys, who had been beat up by gangs in the United States, has grown up to be this man. And this man has dealt with so much fear, anxiety, doubts, adversity, trauma. And throughout my healing journey, I now get to sit behind a microphone like this or take the stage at Rise to Greatness and speak to tens of thousands of people at a time and help them find their 2.0 self. And so that I know what my meaning of life is. And if each of us figured out our own meaning of life, then the world becomes a much more beautiful place.
You touch on trauma there, and you've often mentioned before that you believe that trauma has led to what you call now your superpower.
Yeah.
I can relate. I grew up in domestic violence. I had an abusive stepfather, and there's sexual abuse in my family as well. When it comes to trauma being so deeply rooted in a family and in an upbringing, it can hinder people on a very dark subconscious level.
Sure.
I know that you do deep work with men in particular at your events. When this trauma shows up, usually people shut down, deflect, divert, distract,
Escape.
Yep. How does one catch themselves and have that conversation with what Napoleon Hill talks about that in that book from my memory, the shadow self?
Yeah. And I think we need a level of self-awareness. I'm not even talking about a high level of self-awareness where you could go outside. Like today, I am the spectator of my own life. Like I literally see myself standing at that door, watching all of this happen, like these people here are watching all of this happen. Like that is called having outside eyes on yourself. With enough work, any one of us can develop and have outside eyes. The old me used to react to things. When I would get angry and emotional and upset and I'd feel like DAIN rubbed me the wrong way and I would send you an all caps text message with multiple exclamation points and send. And of course you would be like, wow, this guy's gone fucking batshit crazy, right? Now I go, you know, I wonder why DAIN sent that. I wonder if my friend DAIN is okay. Maybe he's having a bad day. Instead of reacting, I respond to it because outside eyes go, DAIN probably didn't wake up this morning and say, how can I ruin Bedros' day? DAIN may be having a bad day. And if I'm a good friend, I'm going to reach out to him and say, hey, buddy, is everything okay? Do you want to jump on the phone? Can we talk? That is the 2.0 self. And so, but somewhere between the 2.0 self and the 1.0 human animal that we are, because the human animal is impulsive, it's selfish, it's greedy, it's emotional. We have to have a level of self-awareness. Like, what am I feeling right now? Why am I feeling this? Is this a legitimate feeling? Maybe there's a person or two that you can trust. Hey, Joan, do you think that I'm out of line if I respond or react this way to DAIN for saying this? And she might go, whoa, guy, don't send that. You know, all it takes is him taking a screenshot, putting it on social media. There goes your reputation, right? It takes 20 years to build our reputation, 20 seconds to ruin it. And so that's a Warren Buffett line, by the way, so no one credit me for that. And so I share that with you because it is absolutely imperative that we develop some level of self-awareness. Well, that leads us to the more important question. How do we become self-aware? The ego. The ego will put up so many shields, not allowing you to see the chinks in your armor, the kryptonite in your armor. And so the more you can kill your ego, the death of the ego is giving birth to higher self. And so you must be able to control your ego. And if you can control your ego, you become more self-aware. You become more self-aware, you see how you're showing up to the world. And you can ask people, hey, am I showing up like an asshole or a decent human being? Give me the brutal, honest truth. And when they do, you can't react to them. You have to thank them and then go fix yourself. Soon you begin to have outside eyes on yourself and you realize, holy shit, man, like I am no longer run by my emotions, but I'm run by consciousness, higher self, which is a beautiful place to be.
And you talk about having a personal economy and becoming your 2.0 self. How much does your own negative thinking impact your personal life as a father, husband, a leader, a friend, and a comrade?
It used to, my negative thinking, my pessimistic view on life used to impact my life massively in a bad way. In a bad way. I grew up in a communist family where you're always thinking that the government wants the worst for you, which I'm not sure if the government wants the worst for us. They just don't want us to unite and to stand up against them. as an opposition, right? And so with that in mind, I realized the more I can heal, the more I can solve my traumas, the more I can ascend to higher self, the less my former self is going to negatively impact my family, my health, my finances, my mission in life. But the old self, the old version of me, dude, I was self-sabotaging. I would literally, Gay Hendricks in his book, The Big Leap, talks about upper limiting. In other words, there's this limit of comfort that you have, this glass ceiling, he says, and you get to a place, let's say financially, where you've never had this much money before. You're making good money, there's good profits, everything's running well, but you haven't done the self-work to heal and to feel deserving of that level of success. So subconsciously you go, oh, this is an unfamiliar territory, and you'll do something stupid to sabotage and ruin it and bring yourself to a place of debt, of uncertainty, of chaos, of arguments with friends, family, whoever, because at least that's comfortable. It's what you know. When you heal, you can break through the glass ceiling and then go, I deserve this, I deserve this, I deserve this. And it all goes back to healing, which is self-mastery.
And before you touched on limiting beliefs,
Yeah.
what exactly is a limiting belief? You know, I've studied NLP, and oftentimes this is a bit of a headbender to get around of what it really means to have a limiting belief, where it might come from, and how to find the root cause of it and rip it out.
Yeah, yeah. So a limiting belief is a false story about yourself that you believe, and then therefore go out into the world and find evidence to prove it right.
So you build a case, almost like, you know, I'm thinking back to when I went to school. I went to a lot of different schools. I went to over 30 different schools, and I had a belief, which was I hate reading, and I'm terrible at reading. And I just decided that I'd build a case for that. It's like, I've never read many books, therefore I hate it and I suck at it.
Yep.
Now I have a library and I can't stop reading. You know, so for me, that was a limiting belief. But I think, you know, how many people are wandering around not realizing that these are taking place?
Well, it's typically stories that we tell ourselves. So for example, my family told me that I was a fat, clumsy kid. I was overweight as a kid, and I was clumsy. And so I grew up with the narrative, the story that I would tell myself is that I'm always going to be fat, always going to be clumsy. I'm not meant to be athletic. So I never took any sports throughout school, throughout high school, any of that stuff. And then I would literally find reasons in the world. It's like, see, I went to the gym and I was nervous and I didn't like it and I was sore the next day. This isn't for me. I literally thought no one else gets sore except me, right? Because I would find evidence to reinforce the story that I had told myself. And then one day I met a football player, American football player, high school football player. We were in the same science class. And I said, hey, how do I get in shape like you? He's like, man, you're going to have to work out hard. You're going to be sore. You have to eat right. And whoa, what do you mean be sore? He goes, oh, yeah, you break down your muscles when you work out. And so you're going to have microscopic tears in your muscles. And then when they go to heal, they're going to heal stronger. And each time you break them down, you get sore and they heal stronger. And over time, the muscle gets thicker and you get more athletic looking. And if you eat right, you burn the fat and you look like a walking anatomical chart within a year or two. I was like, holy fuck, where do I sign up for this, right? So he takes me to the gym, teaches me how to eat. And all of a sudden, as I started to lose fat, see my abs, build muscle, I come back senior year of high school in amazing shape. And all of a sudden, the story I'm telling myself is, I'm athletic, I'm fit, everybody loves me. And then as I'm walking around the campus, I see people looking at me. I find evidence to reinforce the new story that I've told myself. So I realized all we do is trauma happens, adversity happens, boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse says something, and then you lock on, and then you go, that's who I am. You create a false identity, and then you search in the world to find evidence to reinforce that false identity. So just go become the best version of yourself in whatever category. Make more money, find a better spouse, get in shape, begin to learn how to read, and you're like, man, I'm a really fucking great reader. I felt, because I'm a foreigner, that I couldn't read my book in terms of audiobook, right? So I was like, well, I got enough money. I can hire any celebrity to read my book, right? But everybody kept reading when I was teasing my book on social media that it's coming out. They're like, man, I hope you're making an audiobook, and I hope it's you that reads the audiobook, right? I was like, fuck. And so the publisher says, hey, and you can confirm that with Joan. The publisher says, well, for the number of pages that he has, we rented 2 days in a sound studio for him, and the sound engineers will walk him through the whole process. I said, Joan, pay for 2 more days on top of that. I need 4 days, because that's how bad of an out loud reader I am. So I had the same problem as you. And I got there, and they taught me how to read out loud. They taught me how to actually go through a comma, how to emphasize specific things. Like, these guys were professionals. Sure enough, at the end of the 2 days, I had mastered it. I didn't need the other 2 days. Now I can't wait for my next book and my next book to come out for me to go in the studio and read it, because I'm like, man, I'm a fucking awesome reader. Because the feedback I've gotten from people when they listen to the audiobook, they go, dude, we hear the emotion in your voice. When you talk about telling Andrew that you had to sell your GTR because you needed the money to pay for payroll, we heard the crackling in your voice, and I started crying. I was like, holy fuck. No way an actor reading that could have transferred that same emotion. You know what I mean? So now I'm like, man, I'm a good out loud reader. So I'll go anywhere and I'll just fucking take a book, start reading it out loud like I'm fucking preaching. But the old version of me, the story I had told myself and the evidence that I had gathered to reinforce that was, one, I'm not a good reader. I am a horrible loud reader. Turns out I'm amazing at it.
I really like that you can take a story and you can change it, and we can
Absolutely.
completely dictate that. I like to think of it like kind of logging into a computer and deleting a line of code and writing something else.
I love that. Yes.
Yeah, and something I did recently, which was a belief I'd gotten from my mother, because she has beliefs like the rich are evil and everyone's out to get us. And one thing that really hurt me was everyone's out to get you. And I would always unconsciously be nervous of other people around me. And I just simply started catching myself when I would say it, and I would change it to everyone's out to help me. And I would get delusional about it. And then the weirdest thing that started happening to us was complete strangers we'd run into would just find ways to help me. Yeah. And it was almost like I'd manifested it, or however you want to describe it.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah.
Bro, it's not by accident that you think of someone and all of a sudden they text you or call you. I really believe there is a universal connection amongst all of us. I do believe that karma exists, that we have to pay off our karmic debt in order to develop more goodwill with humanity, to be able to have the good things in life. And our parents, grandparents, they meant well, but they come from trauma. And so maybe, yeah, they are, like my dad saw his uncles getting shot at by the Turks, right, during the Armenian genocide. My dad still has a hate on for the Turks. He'll ask me from time to time, do you have any Turkish clients? I'm like, no, Dad, I don't, even though I have two, right? Because he'll literally, he'll spit on the ground. Like, that's how much he hates the Turks. He had transferred that onto me. So as a kid growing up, I was like, the Turks are evil. And then I remember thinking, like, why are they evil? Like, why is this Turk evil? He's not. The Turks back in 1915, who obviously were part of a massive genocide in terms of the Armenians, pretty fucked up. But this guy here, who seems like a solid human being, wants to give me money so that I can help him grow his business. I could actually be friends with this guy. I like how he rolls. I like his personality. I like his everything about him. And so I realized very quickly that we can start changing narratives. Man, I was 11 years ago. So I'm 220 pounds now. At 242 pounds, I was on a lot of testosterone, a lot of Sestanon, a lot of Deca, a lot of shit, because when you live in Southern California, Tijuana's like an hour away, and I would go into Tijuana and buy a lot of anabolic steroids. And so I was very big during my competitive years as a power lifter in my early 20s all the way to my mid 30s. And I remember thinking to myself, God has made me to lift weights. I pick things up, I put
That's
things
a powerful belief.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And so when people would say, hey, do you want to run a marathon? Do you want to run a half marathon? Nope, I'm not designed to run. And so I told myself that story. And so every time I try and run, things would get, and I wouldn't stretch. I would try and run in chucks instead of actual running shoes, right? And I go, see, my knees hurt. We just went half a mile. I'm not made to run. Now let's go get under the squat bar. Let's do some deadlifts. I'll show you what I'm made to do. And then one day I decided I'm going to hire a running coach. I'm going to train for 6 weeks and run the San Diego Marathon. Fucking changed my life. At 242 pounds, I ran the San Diego Marathon, trained for 6 weeks, ran it. Now, was it painful? Absolutely. The training, the actual marathon itself, all of it. Did I have thoughts that, like, I want to quit and no one will know if I quit because, like, I'm not talking about it on social media? However, because I pushed through that, I realized that we are so pliable. Whether it's your mind or your body, you can learn and become any version of yourself that you want to become. Now today, once a year, I'll do this thing called Suckfest, where I'll get 37 to 40 miles in throughout the night. I'll stay awake all night and go hiking in Chino Hills with zero preparation, because I now believe that if I have to, I can run 20 to 30 miles, run, move, etc., move my body that level of distance. That's the narrative I've told myself. I believe that story, and I prove it every December. And so it's amazing what we can do once we tell our minds that this is my end outcome. It's also amazing how we can shackle ourselves to, I'm not good with remembering names, I'm not good with reading books out loud, I'm not made to run. Like whatever you say, you will manifest.
Yeah, and I agree. Like we recently recorded the audiobook, and that was a challenge for the first day, and then we started to get into a rhythm, and you know, by the end of it, we were screaming that book out. It was awesome. At your events, you take men on these wild ritualistic journeys where at certain points these men break down, they cry. How are you able to externalize from your perspective, I'm pushing this person beyond their brink?
Yeah.
Some would say, what gives you the right to do that?
Good question. And by the way, what you're talking about is the Modern Day Night Project. It is the most controversial thing that I have, right? So when I run events, people come up and shake my hands and, you know, gosh, you know, I follow you, I listen to your podcast, et cetera. But when you'll see content creators on YouTube shitting on the project, and yet I will continue to run the project because I've got 9 physical letters at my office of men who wrote to me afterwards saying, had I not done the project, I was going to kill myself. Every project class, so it's a 75-hour experience for men who are suffering in silence, white-knuckling through life. Some are considering killing themselves, ending their lives. About a third of them are either former military or first responders, police and firefighters. The other third of them are typically business leaders, owners, operators of business. And the other 1/3 are people who are looking to challenge, men who are looking to challenge themselves and break out of their comfort zone. Life's been too comfortable for them. All of them have some level of trauma, pain, adversity that they are escaping from. Sadly, they're not about to go to a therapist. They're not about to talk to their spouse. They're not about to talk to their friend about what's going on, the demons that they're dealing with. They go to the website for the project and they see what the project is about. They see that it's the instructors are Navy SEALs, they're former Marines, they're Army Ranger, and then myself. I've got no military background. I'm just financially successful in business. And over the 75 hours, we take this group of 25 to 30 men through this experience. Now, there's a bell that they can ring and quit anytime they want. Our Navy SEAL instructor, he said, let's model it after BUDS training, where anytime they want to quit, they can. So these men pay for this experience. And what you see on social media is what we put out. So out of a 75-hour experience, we'll put out maybe 8 to 12 minutes of clips of Steve, the Marine, yelling at them, saying, I'll take this K-bar out of my pocket, off my hip, and I'll cut this tattoo of the Project Crest off my hand if any of you motherfuckers think you're going to make it to dinner. Now, he's putting on a show, right? He's putting on a show. He's also batshit crazy, but he's one of the most caring, loving fathers and husbands you'll ever meet. But at the project, he's the hammer, and that's that. I'm Papa Bear. If I see you looking at that bell and you want to ring that bell, I'll just come up to you and say, hey, look, just keep crawling. I know it's 2 in the morning. I know you're like, why the fuck am I here? Why did I pay for this? Don't look at that bell. Consider ringing the bell when the sun comes up tomorrow. Fair enough? And when the sun comes up, they see they have a new day. They can avoid the bell for one more day. We just are about to graduate. Nevertheless, about 25, 30% of the men who go through a class will ring the bell and quit. Another 10% will get medically rolled. They get injured, they get rhabdo, whatever. But the project is designed to help men have a place that they can suffer together, because suffering introduces a man to his highest self. I wish that men were more like women, where we could all, as dudes who are strangers in here, right? I know most of them are familiar to you, but let's take all the strange dudes. Let's go to dinner tonight and over some food, talk about the hardest things in our life, the things that are keeping us awake at night. We're not going to do that because as men, we have a shield up. Women are fucking amazing at that. You take 10 strange women, you sit them down at a restaurant, they're just vomiting out everything, right?
And they're all talking at once.
They're all talking at once. They're all solving each other's problems. It's like this beautiful sisterhood, solving problems. The only time men will start solving problems, I might be like, hey, bro, how's it going, Dane? You doing good? You're like, Everything's great, Dane. I'm like, great, man. Let's go surfing. We go surfing. So now we're driving in my truck, going to the beach. We're both looking forward, not eye to eye anymore. When we were eye to eye, I asked, how's your life? And you said, good. Everything's great. Cool. Now we're driving. I'm like, so Dane, how's everything going? You're like, well, you know, having these problems. Or when we're paddling out, or when we're building a house, or when men are suffering together, a bond is created, right? There's that quote that says, the quote is that we heard is blood is thicker than water, but in actuality is taken out of context. The quote actually goes like this: the covenant of the blood is thicker than the water of the womb.
Ooh.
You get that, right?
Yeah.
Covenant of the blood is thicker than the water of the womb. So men who have suffered together, spilled blood together, are tighter and more bonded than two men who come from the same womb, brothers, right? And so I figured that out about men. One, that suffering introduces a man to his highest self. Number two, that a man must suffer with his peers and must be distracted in order to talk about what is keeping him awake at night, why he's entertaining killing himself, why he is drugged up, a functioning alcoholic, so much pornography, infidelity in their marriage, whatever it is. We've dealt with it at the project. And we help these men in a very safe environment open up for the first time, because I talk about being sexually abused. I talk about my addictions. Every instructor there talks about what they've gone through. And all of a sudden, these men realize that, holy shit. And the project really should be about 4 hours long. The evolution where we talk about this stuff starts at hour number 36 to hour number 40. It's a lot of journaling. But we have to make these men suffer. Ice bath, truck pull, crawling in mud and dirt with rucksacks, getting yelled at and hammered, taken to the beach and having the Navy SEAL put them through surf torture. All of these things get these men to bond. We suspend disbelief by keeping them awake. Now your armor goes down. Now these strange men are calling each other brothers, because every evolution is designed where individually they will all fail. Collectively, you can win. You might be a better crawler. So you might say, hey, Bedros, give me your sledgehammer, give me your rucksack, just carry your own body weight, I'll crawl. When we go to the beach, I might be a better swimmer. I'll say, Dane, give me your shit. Let me hold on to that while you just try and keep yourself alive and going to link up to my arms. But we're all going to help each other through every evolution. I'm getting goosebumps talking about this because
same, man.
When strange men start calling each other brothers, at hour number 36, when I introduced that evolution, Toxic Cognitions, where we're journaling about the worst thing that's happened in our life, how it shows up in terms of the damage it's causing our marriage, our relationship, our business, the dark thoughts that we're having. For the first time, these men can talk about it, can write about it, it becomes real. And then we go, hey man, can I introduce you to my therapist? Can we introduce you to a modality called EMDR? Can we introduce you to a book that I think will help you? And for the first time, these men who thought they were alone and suffering in silence realized they have a brotherhood. Some men ring the bell and leave well before hour number 36 and never experience that. Oh well, not my fault. But the suffering is necessary. But what we put out on social media, we don't show the journaling part. We don't show when they're eating. We don't show the laughter. We don't show when they when they're, divide the group up and they're pulling two heavy trucks with the tires deflated, so it's harder to pull. And this group is going to win, or that group's going to win. Whichever group wins gets a pizza, and the other group gets to go and crawl in the mud pit for hours, right? And to see these guys celebrating, eating the pizza, we don't show those things because those aren't going to go viral. What's going to go viral is Steve taking out the K-bar knife and threatening to carve this off his hand. What's going to go viral is me standing there at the bell and telling this guy to ring the bell 3 times. Once for quitting on yourself, once for quitting on your team here, and once for quitting on your family. The family that you told that you're going to come here and transform yourself and go back as a better man, you're quitting. Ring it 3 times and leave, right? Because you've made that conscious decision. This is the way of men. We've gotten so soft. We've gotten so complacent that when people see this, they go, how dare you? How can you do that to men? We're fucking saving lives every day. But when you take 6 to 9 minutes of content out of a 75-hour experience and you take it out of context and you make assumptions out of it, of course, people are going to paint it in a bad light. We're about to do class number 20 in October, and there's no other thing, business or thing that I've done that has been so transformational where 50% of the men that graduate will get this tattoo somewhere on their body. Some of the dudes We're talking like business executives of massive insurance companies, world-class poker players, celebrities, senators, the people that have gone through the project. If I told you who some of them are, and some of them are just regular dudes that own an air conditioning repair company. And I don't care how many private jets you have, because you might be crawling next to a guy who just has a van who's going home to home fixing air conditioners. You're all the same to us in that moment. And they have this tattoo. Dude, I've got hundreds of Fit Body Bootcamp locations. Every location has 400 to 500 clients working out. I only know of 2 people that have a Fit Body Bootcamp tattoo on their body. Fit Body Bootcamp's been around for 15 years. The project's been around for 5 years. Half the dudes get this crest tattooed on their body. Some of them, a giant mural on their back, like they're fucking motorcycle gangsters, right? It's the only tattoo they have. And he's like a fucking insurance executive. He goes, I can't get it in my hand. I lose my job because I go to different nations and I talk. But I got it on my back. I'm like, holy fuck, you're a thug. It's crazy. Yeah.
Dude, I love that. And I think out of everything you've done, I'm a huge fan. I'm a massive advocate for what you're talking about.
Thank
you know, having grown up, you know, without a father, I think it's an important thing that we have role models in society that can highlight how important these journeys are for us as men. Yeah. With all of this work and energy and travel that you're putting in and all the businesses and content that you're creating, how do you want to be remembered?
I want to be remembered by 2 amazing kids, Andrew and Chloe. Andrew's 18, Chloe's 16. They're the love of my lives, man. And my wife and I have done such an amazing job raising them because, remember, I'm a foreigner to the United States. I found my way probably in my early 30s. These kids, since they were puppies, understand what being a go-giver is, understand emotional discipline, have a life's vision, realize that they have, even as well as we've raised them, we've told them that we probably have traumatized you in some way. You're going to have to heal through that and gift yourself to the world. And they are making such massive impacts at the age of 16 and 18 already. I could only imagine at 49, at my age, how they're going to impact the world. That's how I want to be remembered. Not by the books I've written, the companies I've built, the podcasts and all that shit I've done, by 2 amazing kids who are going to build an even better legacy far after I'm gone.
And what's a quote or a mantra that you've carried with you throughout these years that every listener should and immediately implement?
Oh, dude. How you do anything is how you do everything. You look at the guy or gal who doesn't put the shopping cart away at the grocery store. They leave it in the parking space.
Yeah.
Their life is a mess because they failed to put the shopping cart away. Like how they did that is how they do their bank account, their relationship, their health. I can look into their car. You'll see a disheveled car with soda pop cans and empty coffee cups from Starbucks and hamburger wrappers. How you do anything is truly how you do everything because all things are connected. And so someone that says, well, I'm fat, but I have a great relationship. No, you don't. You're fat and your relationship is struggling. Your ego defenses aren't allowing you to notice that until she files for divorce, you stupid fuck. But if you were to fix your fatness, your relationship would automatically improve as well because you could only love someone else at the capacity that you love yourself. And if you are over fat, the one vehicle that you have, because you do realize this is just a vehicle, right? Do you have a car, Dane?
I do, yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
When you step into your car and become the driver, do you become the car?
Yeah, in a weird way, yeah.
Right?
Yeah, you become the vehicle.
Yeah, you become the vehicle. So, but that car one day will break down and you'll get another car.
Correct.
You have stepped into this vehicle of meat and bones and connective tissue, and you cannot get another vehicle. This is it. Like if I said you only get one car the rest of your life, you're going to take such immaculate care of it because it has to see you through. This is the only vehicle you have, and you poison it, and you overfeed it, and you kill its operating system. You fuck. How can you love your kids? How can you love your wife? You don't love yourself. You could only love others to the capacity that you can love yourself. And so that is the one thing that you can change that can change everything else. So obviously how you do anything is how you do everything.
This has been a pivotal moment for me, having you here and hearing you share your stories and highlight these different things. And I'm grateful for everything that you're doing out here. One last question is, when you wake up in the morning and you're putting a tremendous amount of energy into all of these things, what keeps you going?
The thing that keeps me going, man, is the moment that I stop focusing on my kids, my family, my mission, my need to serve humanity, I will go back to self-sabotaging. Like, I've been molested. I've been beat up. I've been called a foreigner. Go back to your own fucking country. Your parents are taking all of our great jobs, which I never understood because my dad pumped gas and he delivered newspaper at 2 in the morning. That certainly can't be America's greatest jobs. And so the moment I stop serving humanity is when I selfishly go and start self-destructing. And so the thing I asked Kevin is, Kevin's my therapist, I said, Kevin, how much longer do I need to keep building and going? He said, until you die. I said, why? He goes, if you don't, you will... He said, you're a force to be reckoned with, and you will turn that energy on yourself. So just keep serving. And so that's exactly what I'm going to keep doing. It's the most selfish thing I can do is to come here and serve you. And then after this, we've got another podcast. And from there, we fly to Melbourne. And then we've got another podcast there. And then we do the show, Rise to Greatness, and then Brisbane. I want to constantly be positively contributing to humanity. That is where I get my greatest value. I feel that I'm a worthless piece of shit if I don't contribute to humanity. And if I feel like a worthless piece of shit, the next best thing for me to do is start self-destructing.
A lot of wisdom here, a lot of energy, and I think, you know, we share a lot in common, and I'm just grateful that you've taken time out of your day and your very busy schedule while here in Australia to come talk to us.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you for being here.